Want to welcome in to our studios today. We have the Baca boys, Brian and Briley Baca from Advanced Financial Strategies. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Todd.
Good morning.
I keep forgetting I'm using a separate side mixer today. Did you hear what I was
heard
telling
it. My
Ron?
goodness.
Yeah. You love having a backup generator, right? But every time you switch from regular power to generator and back, it can put pressure on like your ups, that people have for computers. It's like a giant surge.
Yeah, I'm going to bring this up because I'm about to have one installed in my office, actually a backup generator. So
and they're great. And like I say, that's why you run weekly tests, just to make sure everything's working. But it never fails. Probably about once every 3 or 4 months, it makes one of our ups, the backups, fail, which is the backup power supply. And that's what happened. And it put it surged through our board, and it didn't make everything not work, but it kind of screwed up the mic inputs, and so we had a backup to the backup, but it doesn't have as many mic inputs as the way engineering explains. So anyway, I've got this little mini mixer over here. Anyway, way too much information. Sorry.
You got a lot going on here.
Yeah, it's okay. It's
okay. I heard you was talking about, did I hear that on the radio a while ago? Yeah, I heard it coming over, but I also heard the conversation with Ron Hayes.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to have him on the radio tomorrow, but my question to him would be, why is it such an issue with the food supply, finding the origin, the country of origin? I'm a consumer, and maybe I'm out of touch, but I would like to know where my food supply comes from, what country it's from. And they do this, he's talking about it was an issue bringing in food from other countries and assembling it, basically blending it here in the United States.
Yeah.
But they do that with car parts. They do it with all kinds of stuff. They say, and you see this, that the parts were purchased from a foreign country someplace, but assembled in the United States.
Yeah.
How's that any different? Our food supply seemed like that would be number one priority. So that's my question. They do it in car parts and the other things and assemble in the United States. So it's the same in essence with food.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why that is, and I thought it was interesting that Canada and Mexico had the biggest problems because they thought we were going to be discriminatory.
Well,
no, your beef came from Canada.
It's transparency is what it is. But speaking of transparency, I mean, there's a lot of financial firms, and we're in this industry, of course, that aren't transparent.
Yeah.
But we are fully transparent, and that's one of the advantages of dealing with us as fiduciaries. We are legally required and morally and ethically required to disclose our fees and expenses. And we do that. We have no problem doing that and being transparent. If a client asks, or we even do it voluntarily without them asking, eventually before we do business, we're going to talk about how we get paid, what's the fees and expenses in your products. But you'd be surprised the people that come into our office with statements and things from other advisors that they have no idea what they're paying. We ask, okay, what are they charging you? Okay, that we got that. But then they also don't understand the underlying fees and expenses inside the investments. And there are those that people don't know what they're paying. So it boils down to transparency. And, Briley and I, of course, I changed the business before he even came on. And it's fully transparent. So when they talk about not wanting to know country of origin or things like that, whether it's food or car parts or whatever, why not? Why not be transparent with it?
Well, and I'll kind of piggyback off that. Like, for example, we deal with a lot of people that have 401ks that we will either roll over if they change jobs or retire or something like that. But we also help them, like if they're not in a spot to where they can roll over their 401k for us to manage for them at that time, then we'll take a look at their 401k for them and make sure they're in, good stuff according to their risk tolerance, age, that type of stuff. But that comes with looking at what things do performance-wise as far as their investments in their 401k, but it also comes down to what is the 401k charging you. A lot of people think that 401ks are free for the most part, and they're absolutely not. They're charging you different ways. One way that they do charge is those funds inside your 401k are not free. Yeah. And so whatever you're invested in, there is an expense tied to those things. And so we're able to go in and, see the things that have the, best historical performance, but also have the lowest fees.
And sometimes it's hard to find.
It is. Well, for example, I had a person in our office just this week, and that's exactly what we were doing for him. He was a client, and so we were doing that as a service. and we were able to find all of the performance history for the 401k, what he was invested in, and all the options he had, but there was no 401k fees or what these funds costed them at all. They had no access to that information.
Wow.
And so that person is actually going to have to get involved with their HR director and try to get the information on what things cost, and it shouldn't be that hard.
Shouldn't be that hard. I always get a red flag in my mind. I'm thinking, okay, if they're making it this hard to find out and they're not being transparent, what is being hit?
They're charging you too much.
How expensive
probably.
is it going to be?
Exactly.
Yeah, so we see that, but the thing is, and to kind of to continue on the 401k conversation, unfortunately, there's a misnomer that people are going to get help with their 401k, and this is something that we've talked about before on here. But I'm going to kind of tell you kind of an extreme example that we've run into recently. Is you start your job and you think there's going to be this person come in and help you from time to time, make decisions, change investments, that type of stuff. There may be someone come in right when you get started, maybe. But then after that, it's kind of few and far between that someone actually comes in and helps you with your 401k and helps you make decisions. But for example, I was dealing with somebody that I was considered, middle-aged, but hadn't looked at their 401k in years. And like 16 years. Well, turns out that they were in a 3% fixed fund for the past 16 years. And in their early years of their career, they missed out on those high octane growth years that they could have had. And what's the market done? What's the stock market done over the past 16 years? It's been incredible. There's been some ups and downs. Don't get me wrong. There's been 2022 was a bad year, as well. And there's been some different downturns, but overall it's been drastically up.
Well, in that particular instance, they cost themselves several $100,000 of retirement income,
Wow.
Retirement savings. And I'll tell you why I say they cost themselves, because ultimately it's the employee's responsibility. If you're out there and you're listening, pay attention to your 401k. Once a year, take a look at it, make sure it's optimally invested, make sure you're in the right stuff. Because as you age, things change. Your life changes. You get married, you have kids, you get divorced. There's all kind, not necessarily in that order, but things happen. Life changes for everybody, and you don't want to just put your head in the sand and assume that your 401k or your retirement investment is the same as it was 10, 15 years ago. It's just not.
That's a really good point, because until I talked to you guys and had you look over my financial stuff, some of my retirement funds were invested in companies that make fax machines and payphones. And, obviously it was a big change.
Yeah,
So.
Absolutely. But, we see some, you can imagine the things that we see, but, one of the biggest things I would consider, aside from your investments is your beneficiaries. And this is something that we deal with all the time. Is I would tell people every 6 months, once a year, go into your 401k and just make sure your beneficiaries are there and are exactly what you want. We've run into multiple times this year alone that people have 401ks. They've heard us on the radio, never met them. We start looking at their 401ks. There's no beneficiaries on there. And they said, oh, well, I put beneficiaries on there, and somehow they've dropped off. Well, that could be a problem if you were to pass away. Luckily they hadn't, and we're able to fix it while they're still alive. But once someone passes away, it's much harder to get things fixed and changed, and sometimes it just can't happen. One
thing we ran into too recently was a beneficiary. Not only wrong beneficiaries, we run into that from time to time, but if let's say a person is 70 years old, and it really doesn't matter the age, but I'll use this to kind of paint a picture. At 70 years old, and say they've got 2 kids. Well, maybe one kid lives out of state. So we saw a situation recently where the parent left all the assets to one of their kids, and they weren't dealing with us, but we're dealing with one of the kids. But one of the arguments, and we have had parents tell us this, I'll just put Sally on there. She'll take care of passing it to her brother.
Right.
She'll take care of it.
We know Sally.
Well, and that not only that, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it does put the person that's receiving the money in a bad spot. You don't want to be in that position. And I'll tell you the other position it puts them in. Let's say they've got a $500,000 leftover IRA that they hadn't used their money.
Yeah.
That one child is going to inherit that money at a $500,000 account, and if the parent puts it on that kid to transfer the other half of that money to the other child, that money comes to the primary beneficiary fully taxable. So it's not a good situation where they've got to turn around now and pay taxes on $500,000, but then they've got to give $250,000 to their brother or sister, and there's a tax issue there. So
Yeah.
you really need to split it between both kids. Doesn't matter if one lives out of state, the other one doesn't. But we have seen situations where maybe one kid is not as financially astute, or maybe has been a problem. We've heard, they're in and out of jail, things like that. Okay, I get that. I understand that, and that's just that's a whole different
Situation,
whole
yeah.
different situation. But my point is if you've got two kids, viable kids, you intend for both your kids to inherit whatever you've got. Be proactive about it. Don't be lazy, and that's what it boils down to. You just don't want to deal with it, but deal with it because it makes it much harder on the kids than what it has to be, and it potentially causes problems. It just doesn't have to be that difficult.
Well, and stuff like that can kind of tear apart some families, cause some hard feelings and that type of stuff, because you got to think, the person that's going to receive the money that's going to be, fully taxed on it. At that point, we've seen some situations where I've paid the taxes on this. I'm going to keep the money.
Yeah.
And, that's a hard argument that's hard to argue with, but, it just makes things much more unnecessary than what it has to be, whenever you're dealing with beneficiaries, for sure.
And to piggyback on this point, but change it up a little bit, because I don't think I've ever asked this before. So let's say children inherit, a parent's 401k. You mentioned that it's taxable. Is it taxable no matter what, or do they have the possibility of rolling it into another retirement account and putting off the tax?
So
Good question.
The short answer is it depends.
Okay.
And so right now, the way the laws work, if someone inherits like an IRA, traditional IRA, traditional 401k, something of that nature, then let's just say you have one beneficiary and it goes to them. Right now, under current tax laws, it says you've got 10 years to take the money out.
It's not taxable right then.
No,
Oh,
you, you can roll it over into what's called a beneficiary IRA, and that is not a taxable event. But what is taxable is over the next 10 years, you are required to take money out of that account, depending on how old your parents were. But you either have to take money out every year, or you can wait till the 10th year, depending on the situation. But I'll tell you what we see is we'll see people that have, decent size or good size 401ks. They'll leave a substantial amount of money to one kid or both kids or whatever. And every single year, depending on when mom and dad died, they've got to take a distribution out. And every year they've got to pay the taxes on it. Well, if you're 50 years old and you're at the, kind of the middle to end of your career, you're making a lot of money.
Yeah.
That is almost a burden, because now, depending on how much money you're making, you may be paying 24-30% or more in taxes. And so
they got to take an extra $200,000 out of an IRA, and this is going to become more of an issue going forward, because we see a lot of larger IRAs, a lot larger 401ks than what we ever used to see. Because people, as the years go by, people are saving better. They're preparing better, and it just becomes an issue. It's not unusual to see somebody pass away with a $1.5 million, $2 million IRA, and then all of a sudden it goes to their kids. Well, their kids, like Bradley said, if they're high level professionals, they're making good money. It's almost I hate to say it, but it's almost a burden, because now they got $200,000, $250,000 extra that they've got to take out on top of their already high incomes. Which you say boo-hoo, it's a big deal, but it is a big deal.
Well, especially when you're giving maybe 25-30% to the government too.
and see,
It puts you in a higher tax
Absolutely.
bracket. Yeah.
It does, and my thing is it is one of those things. It's hard to feel sorry for you because you got all this money, but the other side of it is mom and dad worked their whole career, and depending on if things are not structured properly, unnecessarily you could possibly give. We see sometimes 25, 30, 40% to the government, and that's not their intention.
We try to get people, before they reach that point, possibly do some Roth conversions to, maybe suppress that qualified. It's called qualified plan, but suppress that forever taxable bucket of money down a little bit, and then maybe spend a little bit more money in your living years and enjoy life a better. We enjoy your life a little bit better. But we see people that we call them oversavers. I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
They save money like they're going to live to be 150 years old, and that it's not happening.
Well, and then I don't know if you guys saw this. I was reading this in the paper, I think, yesterday, and it's probably no way this would pass, but it just shows you how, we've heard for years that the government, they're targeting, unrealized gains and stuff like that. Well, a couple of Democratic lawmakers that are on a committee for taxation, they are proposing to tax people's retirement accounts if they have, like $5-10 million in it, right off the bat, before you've even taken it out, before you've actually realized those gains. Well, you're saving too much, so we're going to tax you. That's scary stuff.
It is scary, and I'll tell
scary.
you, it boils down to what I've always said, and everybody in their families need to run this as their own individual economy, is just control your spending. You know, you don't need more money. You don't have to be constantly looking for pay raises or ways to find more money if you just control your spending. That's what I've always said about the government. If they would just control their spending and to stop all the, there's some crazy stuff out there, a bunch of fraud, waste, and abuse. They're, supposedly trying to find it right now. But, if they would eliminate a lot of that stuff and cut down on the spending and the crazy stuff, it's easier for them to spend other people's money. And that's what we are as United States citizens. We are the other people's money. So it's easier for them to spend our money so they don't.
It's far too rational.
Yeah, as far as I guess so. But no, you're right. They just need to control your spending, and that would fix the whole problem. They wouldn't need to look for more money. And it's frustrating because you look at what the Social Security system. There's going to be a big change, and we're hearing more about this all the time now and 2032, which is just right around the corner of everybody in Social Security. It's not finalized yet, but we've heard things and it makes sense. Like everybody across the board taking a 20% pay cut in their Social Security. That's frustrating as heck, especially when they can always find money for whatever pet project they want to do, and then they want to cut our Social Security. That's not, and it's really not cool because I'm coming up on Social Security age.
But it's also a reminder that, man, Social Security was never meant to be your main source of income. And I think one of the things that happened when we started Social Security is that it made people quit saving. Oh, the government's going to take care of me.
Some people have that mentality.
It's just like minimum wage. They wanted to raise the minimum wage, Todd. Minimum wage was never designed to be a living wage. It's a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Minimum wage job, okay, you make a little extra money. I went through it. You went through it growing up.
I'm still making minimum. No, I'm kidding, Harold and Eston.
My first job was, I think, $2.10 an hour. Well, El Rancho cooking burgers. So.
And we were all talking, I know we've all talked about this too, but especially out here in Weatherford and Clinton, you'd be kind of hard pressed to find a job that pays minimum wage.
Yeah.
You can go find, McDonald's or wherever, they're all paying above minimum wage.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody personally that pays minimum wage. There's companies out there, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But that stuff, it's few and far between. But do we need to go to a break, or are we good?
Well, and I think we'll just keep it here. We'll take our break at the end because such a good discussion. So back to our big point, beneficiary information. That's something you guys should check right away.
Absolutely.
And you can help them with that.
We can. Go ahead, Dad.
Well, anytime somebody, logs onto their 401k, like we recommend people jump on there once a year, everybody's got a website that they have access to with it. Just take the time. Don't stick your head in the sand and say, I'll do it tomorrow, or it's going to take 15 minutes out of my day. Make the time. It's what time well spent, because not only check your investments, make sure they're positioned properly, but check the beneficiary provisions while you're there. You don't have to do it 2 or 3 times a year. Just once a year is sufficient. It's fine. But the other thing I want to talk about is the SpaceX IPO, since we're going to stay here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk about that a little bit. There was a lot of interest in it, and this is coming up again with Anthropic and OpenAI. There's some other things that are going to go do an IPO at some point the rest of this year, more than likely. But some people, we did get a few calls on it. Fortunately, not a whole lot, but people wanting to get involved in the excitement.
Yeah.
Well, we always try to talk people away from jumping in like that and the fear of missing out. They think it's going to go to the moon, and it's not. It's just not. But anyway, I said
no pun intended.
No pun intended. Right.
Right.
But just if you want to get involved in something like that, I always tell people, let's wait till after the IPO. Let us settle. Let the market dictate what the price is. There's also something going on with. What I said would happen has happened, and I talked about this either last time here or maybe on another radio show, but it opened at 135. I said, you watch, this thing's going to go up, and then the profit takers will come in and bring it right back down. And that's what's happened. It went over $200 a share. Well, now it's yesterday it was like 108. It went down. 135 was the opening market price for the IPO price. So now it's down below that. So the people that got in at 135 that were so excited about getting it, they're already down. So the other thing that's happening with SpaceX is normally there's a 180 day moratorium, or a lockout is what they call it, on people selling shares. If it's insider, I don't want to say insider trading, if it's the employees.
Sure.
For instance, the people that got shares of SpaceX, they usually is a 180 day or 6 month wait period before they can even sell the shares. So what they've done with SpaceX is pretty interesting. There's a unique staggered lockup schedule. Instead of a single 180 day cliff, what it is there's, every 70 days, 90 days, 100 days or something like that, there's a certain faction of those shares that come able for those people to sell.
Can get dumped.
Can it done? Yes. So it's good to wait until all that happens, because it's going to be interesting when those lockouts come off. What's going to happen to that stock price, and how many people are actually going to sell and either if they're profitable, take profits, or just with employees. I'm sure they got it not at the share price of 135. They got it for zero cost basis, which means they just got the shares because they work there. Elon Musk has a deal where he can't sell any of his shares until the 12th. I believe it's the 12th of June. 1 year and 1 day after the IPO price. So he's in a 1 year and 1 day lockout. So he can't, he's got an enormous amount of shares. I imagine more shares than anybody, but he can't control the price of SpaceX by selling a huge amount of block of shares until after that date. So there are some protections built in there. But anytime the open AI or these IPOs come out, let the free market dictate where the price is going to be. Don't get caught up in all the craziness and the hype to begin with.
The hype, and that's what they count on, so they get more people to.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and bottom line, really, for the average investor out there, it's like going to Vegas when you're trying to do individual stocks, right? There's no get-rich scheme in most of these. Mutual funds usually are the way to go, right?
Well, we don't use mutual funds anymore because the expenses are higher. We use there are a lot of mutual funds.
ETFs, okay, yeah.
Yeah, we use a lot of exchange-traded funds and a lot of individual stocks. We do have some very good individual stock portfolios that we use. Pay dividends, for instance. I mean, Harold asked me one time here on the show, I think it's probably 3 years ago, some of the ways to generate retirement income, and I told him we have a real good, it's called the equity dividend strategy that we use, and it's stocks that all pay dividends.
Yeah.
But we got a call from right after we got back to the office, got a call from a guy that wanted to come see us.
Wanted to do that.
And said his advisor didn't want to do dividend paying stocks. I'm like, well, we will. It's you're the client.
We're the men of the people. We'll do what you need to. So,
absolutely.
One thing real quick that I wanted to touch on is we deal with people that are they work too long almost. And one thing I wanted to kind of leave people with is if you were at your doctor and they told you had 10 healthy years left of in your life, not that you have 10 years left to live, but you have 10 healthy years left in your life, would you retire sooner? That's something that people need to think about, because we see so many people that they say, I'm going to work another year. I'm going to work another year. Okay, and that's fine, but why? Is the income that you are receiving from your job worth giving up another year of spending time with your family, or traveling, doing what you want? Because unfortunately, what we see is people wait too long to retire, and then they're all sorts of stuff. Their necks hurt, their knees hurt. They can't travel through the airports as good. They don't have the desire to travel. But if they would have retired 5 years earlier, and they probably could have. And
a lot of people do have the means that they don't realize. Once we plug all their income sources together, they do have the means to retire earlier than what they anticipate. They just have to live on a fixed income, but some people's fixed income is higher than others.
Yeah, well, good stuff, guys. But you've just convinced me I'm retiring, so this is going to be my last day on the air.
Last show.
Sorry, guys, but we are out of time. But man, I love this conversation. I learned something every time you guys are here.
Well, thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Brian and Briley back up from Advanced Financial Strategies. We got news coming up next.
Thanks.
Senate District 26 needs a leader who understands our local economy, not someone learning on the job.
Western Oklahoma needs a leader who has a proven record of listening and accomplishing. For over 40 years, I've run successful businesses thanks to the great people here in District 26. Together, we can continue to do great things. Now I'm ready to serve as your next state senator.
For steady leadership and proven results, vote Rick Cook for State Senate.
Paid for by friends of Rick Cook 2026.
Ladies, it's time to save big at It's All About Moi in downtown Weatherford. Shop their huge sale on women's clothing. Anything that's marked 50% off, they're doing a 2 for $40 or 3 for $50 sale. You'll find stylish tops, dresses, jeans, and more at prices you won't want to miss. Whether you're updating your wardrobe or treating yourself to something new, now's the perfect time to shop. Hurry in. Deals this good won't last. And It's All About Moi, located in downtown Weatherford. It's All About Moi, where it's all about you.
Hey Bulldog Nation, I'm John Paul Louie, a junior offensive lineman on the SWOSU football team, and I'd like to invite you to be a part of the 20th annual SWOSU Athletic Auction. Online bidding opens July 27th and runs through August 7th, with our live event taking place on Saturday, August 8th. To register, purchase tickets, browse auction items, or learn more, visit SWOSUathleticauction.com. Thank you for supporting Bulldog Athletics, and go Dogs.
Special thank you to ASAP Energy Inc., underwriting sponsor for the 20th Annual SWOSU Athletic Auction. Their support helps fuel opportunities for Bulldog student athletes across SWOSU Athletics.
Blistering days mean blistering savings at Cummins in Weatherford. The savings are heating up and there's never been a better time to buy. Whether you're headed to the lake, camping, or open road, now is the time to drive a brand new Chevrolet. Right now, get 0% for 5 years on a new 2026 Chevrolet Trax for qualified buyers. Drive away in a brand new ride from Cummins in Weatherford. Cummins Cadillac Chevrolet GMC in Weatherford, I-40 and Airport Road, or online at CumminsBPG.com. Chevrolet, together let's drive.
Here's the tale of the daily Medfield. Same old pharmacy, same old bill, but those prices kept rising higher still.
Till the savings wrangler rode in, cool as can be. Tap Good RX, saving massively.
No plan? Don't matter none. Up to 80% off. The deals are done.
Discounts hitting harder than Ma's chili. Dang. That one little app does all the rest.
Save time and money on prescriptions.
Check Good RX. Good RX is not insurance.
7:35. We got John Matthews joining us now. John, I got bad news for you.
No, what's going on?
Well, you were one of my beneficiaries for my 401k and IRA retirement accounts because I wanted to leave something to you.
Thank
but
you.
after talking with Brian and Briley, you're going to be taxed 25 to 30% when I leave you money, and I don't want to put that burden on you.
Whoa,
so
why?
I'm removing you as a beneficiary.
But why? You said IRA. Those you can't tax the Roth IRA.
Well, that's Roth, okay?
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But, right now, several millions of my dollars are in simple IRAs and 401ks, and that's what I was going to leave. The Roth is just going to my family.
So, well, then who's not
I-
taxed?
My family. But you will be taxed as a beneficiary, so I'm just trying to help you, so I'm removing you.
Okay, but then what are you going to do with the money that won't make it where it's still not taxed?
Well, I'm going to convert it a little bit at a time.
But you're going to be dead.
I know.
So that's my point. So why does removing me as a beneficiary doesn't change anything? Because it's still going to be taxed for somebody
but
else?
I'd rather tax some other relatives that maybe I don't like as much.
Okay.
I love you too much to tax you.
Oh, you're such a
with
good
this
person.
burden. Yeah.
Man, we sound like you moved to California is what it sounds like. Jeez. Taxes are ridiculous. I don't quite understand that whole process.
And it's also ridiculous when you think, and that's why really, not to get into it again, but the Roth is the way to go, because think about it. Let's say you invested $1,000, in your 401k, and then 50 years later it grows into $100,000. When you take it out, you're not taxed on that initial $1,000 investment. You're taxed on the $100,000 if you're doing a 401k or something.
It just
like that.
hurts right now when I put $1,000 into my Roth and only $700 goes into it.
Yeah,
that's what hurts, and I get it. I get why it's better now than later.
Yeah,
it's just right. It's like, I just put $1,000 to make my life better, but
just think
my
about
credit
the
just
future.
went up 700. Yeah, no, I get it. It's hard to think that way sometimes, but you were 100% right. How's everything else? You good?
Yeah, good. We're celebrating my dad's 90th birthday today.
Happy birthday, Dad.
Richard Christian Bruner, 90 years old, born on this date in 1936.
He doing good? Health, everything, 90?
He's doing great, living at home despite, having a massive heart attack in December, which scared the crowd, because that was 6 months after my mom passed, and it scared us to death. But I'm telling you, he's the bionic man. I'm so proud of him. I hope I have his DNA, a lot of it, because he is doing amazing.
I'm sure
we're
he's
going to celebrate him tonight.
Ready for football. What do you do to celebrate your 90th birthday?
Well, we're having dinner and cake. I mean, that's the funny. At 90, you basically leave the house for doctor's appointments and every now and then a meal out on the town. And so since we went to the doctor's office last week in the city, we're going to Lucille's and Clinton. We got family and friends coming in, and we're going to do that because you can't keep them away from NCIS reruns very long. You got about a 3-hour window that you can go do something.
Oh, my dad was MASH. That was his. That was his addiction.
Gunsmoke too.
Yeah, I get it.